Winners and losers of the 2023 NHL trade deadline. It was busy throughout the week, busy throughout the last couple weeks. Today's deadline, not as active. I think we finished at it around, it looked like 16, 17, 18 trades around there today. So we've seen a few other years where that's been the case. I do think overall, I would have wanted to see certain trades happen that were rentals and that just didn't come together. But I will say, yeah, a winner is Toronto. I think the Leafs today, I'm a little disappointed Dubas didn't make another move. I think with that first round pick you got in the Sandin trade, that was kind of my mindset. If you trade Sandin like that, get a first, you're making another move. So a little disappointed in that. But in terms of what they were looking for, I mean, the Leafs, they accomplished what they wanted. They got size on the back end. They got defensive structure. And, of course, they got speed with a little bit of shit disturber abilities up front with Achari and Lafferty. And so getting McCabe and Shen. So the Leafs accomplished what they want. I think some people would argue that they should have got another middle six forward with more scoring. Maybe that's Matt Nyes. Maybe Nyes can score a couple secondary goals for the Leafs in the playoffs. Who knows? And then with the goaltender situation, yeah, it's risky. You're potentially facing off against Vasilevsky. You have Matt Murray, who hasn't been himself, injured on and off, and Samsonov, who has, one playoff win. So to me, the Leafs are winners, but there's a little bit of an asterisk because I think they should have made one more move. Also winners, shout out to Lucas. So Lucas joined me for the live stream all day. He said the Wild are winners and the Blues are winners. I like the fact that the Blues sold, so they got a lot of assets, and then they got like an underrated piece in, I shouldn't say underrated, but like a low-risk deal in terms of claiming Kapanen off waivers and obviously getting Verona at 50% retained. So those are low-risk buys there to kind of get into the roster, see if they can be part of it moving forward, and both fairly young, of course. And then the Wild. I mean, the Wild, they got a second and fifth, as Lucas talked about, for Greenway. He's been part of the Wild for a while, but a rough season. And the fact that they got a second and fifth, I think, is good value. So huge shouts to the Wild. And Billy Guerin, man. Billy Guerin's been buzzing. Got Sundqvist for a fourth. That's cheap. Klingberg, that's a good get as well. I mean, the value there is huge. I want to see Klingberg with Brodin, fellow Swedes. Islanders, if they make the playoffs, are W. So there's, again, an asterisk right there. I think the Islanders are W if they make the playoffs. If they can make the playoffs, I like the moves the Islanders made. Horvat, and I think Engvall can be a fit. And if they get healthy and the Islanders make the playoffs, I think for Lou, it's worth it. I like what Boston did. Unfortunately, I mean, the Bruins, they stacked up. I mean, they're ready for everything. I mean, goaltending set, defense set, bringing in Orlov. The forward group, the fact that you have shit disturbers like Hathaway and Bertuzzi in there, the Bruins are definitely dubs. Rangers, Devils, in a way. I mean, there's so many dubs in the Eastern Conference, but I do want to give a shout to the Oilers as well. That's a dub in what they did, getting Ekholm exactly the fit they needed, and also getting Bustad. So those are probably my dubs. Actually, Ottawa as well, man. That Chychrun trade. I mean, Ottawa overall, I wouldn't say they were active enough to like be like these big time, but just in terms of that one trade, the Chychrun trade was the win. So, and I would argue maybe the best trade, to be honest. I think there was a lot of other great steals and great deals, but the fact that Chychrun, with the value he has, the 2 additional years of the cap hit, I mean, the Sens just made out big with that trade. So those are probably most of the winners. I'm maybe missing one. I do like what Vegas did to an extent, but I thought they were going to add another forward, so I was kind of surprised by that. So not necessarily winners there. I think they're probably in between. But those are my winners. Losers now. Let's talk about losers. So I feel like I've been talking on behalf of a lot of Canucks fans, and I truly can't see how you look at the Canucks, and even if Hronek works out, their lack of direction here is just a disaster. They weren't able to trade any of Garland, Besser, Miller. They traded a first and second for Hronek in a year where they could potentially get Connor Bedard. And I just think overall, there was no excuse for the Canucks in terms of having a direction here. And there's truly no excuse for the Philadelphia Flyers. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me? The Flyers, Chuck Fletcher, I tweeted out Hot Take Hockey on Twitter. Chuck Fletcher should have been fired yesterday or the day before or at any point here. Disaster territory. The fact that you did not trade JVR and you had so many other pieces. Disaster for the Flyers. Complete disaster. And you know what? I'll go back to it. I think the Sabres did well. They're a team that was in the middle. Florida didn't do much. Like, to me, a team like Florida, a team like, I know Lucas said Montreal are losers. I don't know if I'd go to the extent of saying Montreal are losers because Monahan's injury and Duran, I don't know the value there. Edmondson just coming off injury. It is frustrating though. If there was any deal that had at least a 3rd round pick on the table for Montreal for Edmondson, they should be doing that deal. It doesn't make sense to me. So that's a weird scenario, but huge losers, man. Definitely Philly, definitely Vancouver. I don't know if the chat wants to help me out on another loser. I like the fact, again, these are not winners or losers. I'm just evaluating here. And the Ducks got trades done. The Coyotes got trades done. I wouldn't necessarily put them in any category. I don't think the Coyotes are losers necessarily, even though I think the Chychrun return was underwhelming, but they put themselves in that situation. Maybe they're closer to the loser side, if anything, but they have so many assets and so many draft picks that if they make out on a bunch of those draft picks, huge. I think some people will call the Hurricanes an L, Aveen in the chat, but I mean, they got what they were looking for in Gostisbehere. I think the only add would have been like a second-line center upgrade over Kotkaniemi. So to me, I was looking constantly at Nick Schmaltz, but it's a tougher deal to make. It truly is a tougher deal to make. I think some people, in terms of the misdirection in Calgary, and then Calgary made, I cannot believe the Ritchie brothers got swapped. That is nuts. And the Calgary Canucks now, Markstrom, Tanev, Toffoli, Stetcher. It's crazy. So I don't know if I'm going full out losers, but the 2 biggest losers for me are definitely Philly, Vancouver. The 2 biggest winners for me, man, to narrow down the winners, I mean, I think Edmonton got done what they needed to get done. So to me, they're a big winner. And I think the Sens in the individual trade, big winners. After that, it'd probably be next level of like the Leafs and follow up. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't have Pittsburgh in winners or losers. I think what they did is a little bit confusing. And honestly, at the start, I thought Granlund might be a good change of scenery. But looking at the contract now, I feel indifferent about it. But Boston's definitely huge winners. Yeah, Boston's huge winners. So Boston, Ottawa, and Edmonton right up there for winners. Toronto's like right next after them, potentially. But obviously, I mean, guys, we'll talk about who goes far. I'm going to make my post-trade deadline prediction video for the playoffs. It really comes down to that, right? Success. I mean, all these trades on paper, you can make all these trades, but it truly doesn't matter. And yeah, I think Florida should have done more, potentially, at least do something. And yeah, I think it's decent that Nashville's giving Asplund a chance. I just being reminded of that. And yeah, I mean, there's a few minor deals, so it might get close to in around 20 trades when it's all said and done. But yeah, outside of that, I don't know if chat can help me out as I'm live streaming here, if there's any more winners or losers. But yeah, I like the Dallas Stars moves, actually. That's a good shout, getting Domi. And yeah, I mean, getting Dadonov was decent. But Gurianov for Montreal was underrated. The Habs didn't do much past that. We'll see if the Kings, that Gavrikov and Korpisalo trade works out for them. I can't really make them clear winners or losers, but it's really